Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're doing well today. If you're planning to travel soon or need to access certain federal services in the near future, then this is one update you really can't afford to miss. A crucial deadline is just around the corner, and it could impact millions of Americans, especially those of you who rely on Social Security. That's right, we're talking about the Real ID deadline, which is now officially set for May 7, 2025. After years of delays, the Department of Homeland Security is finalizing enforcement of the Real ID program. Starting on May 7th, if you don't have a Real ID-compliant driver's license or identification card, you could face some serious limitations when it comes to travel and access to federal services. So, today I'm going to break down exactly what you need to know, what this means for you, and why it matters, especially when it comes to Social Security. Let's start by answering the big question. What exactly is the Real ID? The Real ID is a special, federally recognized form of identification that was introduced as part of the Real ID Act of 2005. The goal behind this act was to create a more secure and standardized form of ID to be used for things like air travel, access to federal buildings, and certain other government-related services. In short, it's a way to improve security and reduce fraud. So, while it's not strictly necessary for all purposes, the Real ID will be required for certain activities moving forward. If you're wondering how to identify a Real ID, it's actually pretty simple. A Real ID will have a gold star in the upper right-hand corner of your driver's license or state ID. That little star is the key to unlocking access to a number of services, especially air travel and federal facilities. If you don't have a star, then your state-issued ID will no longer be sufficient to board domestic flights or enter federal buildings after the May 7th deadline. But here's where it gets interesting and why it's important to talk about Social Security. While you won't need a Real ID to receive your Social Security benefits, you might need one if you have to visit a Social Security office or access certain federal services. For example, Social Security offices are often located in federal buildings, and access to these buildings will be restricted to those with a Real ID-compliant form of identification. So, if you need to visit your local Social Security office for anything like a face-to-face meeting, updating your records, or resolving issues, and you don't have a Real ID, you could face some roadblocks. This means that even if you're not planning to travel, if you need to visit any federal facilities, which includes Social Security offices, Medicare offices, or even certain courtrooms, you'll need to make sure you've got a Real ID. Otherwise, you may be turned away or told to reschedule your appointment, which can lead to frustrating delays, especially for those who rely on these services. Now, let's dive into the important question. What do you need to get a Real ID? It's not as simple as just walking into your local DMV and asking for one. To upgrade your current ID to a Real ID, you'll need to bring a few original documents with you to the DMV. These include proof of identity, such as a birth certificate, U.S. passport, or permanent resident card, to verify who you are. You'll also need to show proof of your Social Security number, which can be a Social Security card, tax form, or pay stub. Lastly, you'll need to provide 2 proofs of residence, such as a utility bill, lease agreement, or bank statement that shows your name and current address. It's crucial that you bring original copies of these documents. Photocopies or digital copies won't be accepted, so double-check your documents before heading out to the DMV. Some states may also require additional documentation if you've recently changed your name due to marriage, divorce, or another legal reason. The good news is that most states allow you to submit some of your documents online ahead of time, which can speed up the in-person process. But even if you do that, make sure you schedule your appointment early, as DMVs across the country are already experiencing long wait times as we near the deadline. If you're wondering how to check if you already have a Real ID, all you need to do is pull out your current driver's license or ID card. If you see a gold star in the upper right corner, you're all set for travel and federal access. But if you don't see the star, or if the words "Not for Federal Identification" are written on your card, that means you don't have a Real ID, and you'll need to upgrade before May 7th. For those of you who already have a U.S. passport, this can also serve as an alternative form of identification for air travel or accessing federal buildings, even after May 7th. But the downside is that passport renewals can be costly and take time, which is why many people find it more convenient to get a Real ID. Now, let's talk about some specific scenarios that could affect you. For seniors, those of you who are retired, or anyone receiving Social Security benefits, you may have more limited mobility or rely on others to help you get to your local DMV. This is why I recommend you take action as soon as possible. If you're unable to get your real ID before the deadline, you could face problems when trying to travel, visit federal offices, or even attend appointments. If you're someone who may need assistance getting to the DMV, I recommend reaching out to local services, family members, or even community organizations that could help ensure you get your real ID in time. For those of you who are already planning to travel, keep in mind that starting on May 7th, you'll need that real ID to board a plane for domestic flights. If you show up at the airport with a standard ID and don't have a real ID-compliant license, you won't be allowed through TSA security. It's going to be a major inconvenience for many travelers. So get ahead of the curve. Here's one more tip. If you don't want to deal with the hassle of getting a real ID, you can always choose to use your passport as a form of ID for travel or federal access. But again, if you're only traveling domestically, a real ID will make things a lot easier. As we approach the May 7th deadline, make sure to check your current ID status and schedule an appointment if necessary. This isn't just about air travel. It's about accessing essential government services, like Social Security, without unnecessary delays. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope this video was helpful in clearing up some of the confusion around the Real ID deadline. If you found this video useful, please share it with your friends and family, especially those who may not be aware of this deadline. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more updates on Social Security, travel, and government changes. I'll be back with more helpful tips and news in future videos. Stay safe, stay informed, and get that real ID before it's too late. Catch you in the next one.